Dear students, welcome to part 2 of lecture number 6. I'm Dr. Jagresh Khan. Uh, the, uh, in this lecture, in this part of the lecture, we will discuss the uh, second method household production function approach uh, to value the environmental services. In this approach, we will discuss first the adverse expenditures. Adverse expenditures are those designed to reduce the damage caused by pollution by taking some kind of averting or defensive action. Means that the household spent some amount of money in order to escape a damage, or in other words, in order to escape environmental damage, in order to stop environmental degradation, the household pay something. Such type of the payment is known as the averting expenditure. The household production function approach measures the benefits from improvement in environmental quality by looking at the household expenditures on goods and services that are substitutes or complements for the purpose of avoiding environmental damage. We know that many households spend a certain amount of money in order to prevent, in order to avoid certain environmental damage. For example, installing soundproof wiring to reduce noise. Some houses may be located near the highways, the motorways, the busy roads, so are due to maybe near some type of the projects where noise is very common. So the in order to avoid such type of the noise, the household they installed soundproof walls which reduce the noise. This is averting expenditure. Purchasing radon monitoring equipment to protect oneself from exposure to radon gas. Purchasing water filters to reduce the risk of drinking contaminated water. Similarly, frequent hospital visits to reduce the chance of serious ailments from prolonged exposure to air pollution are some of the examples of the averting expenditure. Frequent painting of residential dwellings due to smoke emissions from a nearby factory and so on. These are the examples to which which show the averting expenditures. In all these cases, the household are willing to pay a certain amount of money to avoid specific environmental damage. These adverse expenditures can be used as a measure of household willingness to pay for a certain level of environmental quality, clean water, clean air, quietness, etc. This is a method similar to the previous contingent valuation method, but the difference is that in this method, the households pay in order to prevent some environmental damage. We can explain this with the help of a case study. The case study is the paper valuing environmental quality changes using averting expenditures and application to the groundwater contamination. The paper was published in 1992, Abdallah et al. In Land Economics. The groundwater quality management is an important public policy issue around the world. Public concern over possible human health effects from contaminated groundwater in USA has led 33 states to enact groundwater protection legislation between 1985 and 1990. Means that in USA, 33 states they implemented the groundwater protection legislation between 1985 and 1990. Most of the past literature deals with cost policies as a remedy to the environmental degraded environment. An area which received little attention is averting expenditures. There are costs incurred. These averting expenditures are actually the costs incurred by households, by firms, or by government to avoid exposure to the groundwater contaminant. This paper shows how empirical measurement of such expenditures can yield conceptually varied estimates of an important category of economic costs of environmental degradation, and how this information can be used in policy decisions. Theoretical explanations of averting expenditures are based on household production function theory of consumer behavior. In context of averting behavior models, the household produces consumption goods using various inputs, some of which are subject to degradation by pollution. The household may respond to increased degradation of these inputs in various ways that are generally referred to as averting or defensing expenditures. Means in order to the household perform different functions, we know, and in order to avoid some environmental degradation, the household spends some amount of money. For example, in order to avoid the contaminated water, the households they spend on the filters, installation of the filters, and the use of the mineral water or some type of expenditures. They are the example of the averting expenditures. The total affected population in this study was 2,770. A sample of size 500 was taken, 500 household was taken from it, and mail questionnaire was used to compute the household averting expenditure to avoid contamination of the trichloroethylene, a chemical which has caused the water contaminated in that particular area. A random sample of 50 non-respondents was contacted on telephone to find if the respondent and non-respondents were similar in key attributes. Out of these, 550 were contacted on phone. Two variables from the medical sample and the telephone interview sample, awareness of the TCE contamination and whether household averting actions were taken in response to TCE was statistically compared. About 43% of the respondents were aware of the trichloroethylene in the water, while 43.75% of the sample respondents they took specific actions in order to avoid exposure to the TCE in their water. It means that 43.75% of the respondents they increase the bottled water purchases by new buyers, installing home water treatment system, hauling water from alternate sources, and boiling the water. These were the alternate sources which the household used in order to avoid the contaminated water. This is the table 1. This shows the different type of the expenditures: increased purchase of bottled water, new purchases of the bottled water, home water treatment systems, hauling water, and the boiling water. And these are the low and high estimates given in this table for this purpose. The household averting expenditure decision in that area, known as per CASI, were considered as two-step process. The household's first step is to decide whether actions should be taken to reduce the exposure to the water or not. This was a binary response. This was yes or no. So you know that in the binary response model, in the logistic models, we allot 1 to yes and 0 to no. So the response becomes binary, and we make use of the binary logistic model. So the study used the model and the results whether to take the averting behavior action for Parkazi household aware of TCE contamination. The results are shown in this figure. The TCE risk, TCE info, child 3 to 17, whether some other problems, child under 3, gender, familiarity, and the results are shown in this figure, of which we see the first 3, TCE risk, TCE info, and child 3 to 17 as the significant determinants of the decision to take averting behavior action. In this figure, this TCE risk, This actually stands for the qualitative rating of the cancer risk associated with the levels of TCE in the water, and it was ranged from 1 to 5. 1 was insignificant and 5 was very seriously risk. TCE info was whether they are informed or not. This was the addition of two integer responses to the amount of information received or obtained concerning TCE. 2 no information, 10 a lot of information. Similarly, child 3 to 14 as you see through 17 as you see in this figure. This means that if 0 if they have no child in the age 3 to 17, while 1 if they have at least one child of this age range. Other problem 0 if individual was not aware of the problem in addition to TCE, and 1 if he was aware. Child under 3 0 if no child under 3, and 1 if yes. 0 if the respondent was male, and 1 if 0 if the respondent was male, and 1 if female. Similarly, familiarity, qualitative ranking of respondent familiarity with the chemical substances, 1 if not familiar, and 4 if very this is 1 to 4 means range familiar, more familiar, less familiar. This was the range and the scales allotted to them. Table 2, this table indicates that the rating of the cancer risk is that household were likely to take averting actions if they receive information of the TCE rated cancer risk associated with the level of TCE in the child age 3 to 17. We see in this table that they take the step because if these three are the significant determinants: TCE risk, TCE info, and the child, if they have any child of the age 3 to 17, so they take risk, they take the action for averting behavior, they spend on averting behavior. Already least square models were constructed to identify the factors influencing the averting expenditure, and the dependent variable was estimated as household averting expenditure directly to TCE contamination over the 88 week study period. The results showed that averting expenditures were estimated to range from 61,313.25 to 131,334 during 88 week TCE contamination period. Qualitative risk perception and knowledge of contamination were important determinants of household decision to undertake an averting behavior expenditure. Averting expenditure vary with household. Qualitative perception of health risk and knowledge of the contamination means the knowledge of the contamination, the health risk, and the some other averting factors were significant factors which led the household to spend on the averting on averting expenditure. A surprising effect of this study was that only 43% of the Parkesi residents were aware of the TCE contamination, beside legislation which requires public authorities to identify the customers of the contamination. In a country like the United States of America, only 43% of the residents were aware of the TCE. They were informed again and again through the notices by the concerned public water authorities. The regulation results suggest that households may not be equally concerned with health risks posed by contamination in drinking water. Notification efforts should be intensified toward those groups which appear to be more concerned with water quality households with young children tend to spend more on averting expenditure related to water. This means that the children are precious in every society. So the young children is one of the having young children is one of the important determinant of spending on the averting expenditure in order to avoid the TCE. Similarly, the other the other determinants are health risk. Those who are exposed more to the health hazards, they spend more on the averting expenditure. So this is the end of this part 2 of the lecture, and these are the references which have been used in part 1 and part 2 of this lecture.